So this is a video on how to build a Chaos Knight. So what we did was started with the Knight Preceptor, the Canis Rex kit, and then we chaosed it up. We magnetized everything. So as you can see here, all the weapon options are fully magnetized. We can change the arm loadouts as well as the loadouts on each of the gun bases. So we can go thermal, take that off, and we can go battle cannon, and we can take that off, and we can go lattice Imperator because the Canis Rex came with that setup. So as you can see there, all three weapons are available. The other hand has the auto cannon, and we've got some chaos bits on it to style it up. We also have the gauntlet, and we also have the chainsword, which we've added a little bit of bits of chaos on as well. So, the model is fully magnetized. You can put any of the undercarriage weapons or shields or anything like that on it. The top Carapace weapons are also magnetized. Everything is here. And then we put a ton of chaos bits on, skulls, chains, posts, standards, things like that, horns. So that brought us to where we are today. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. Hopefully when it's painted, it'll look just as good. But if you want to see how we built this, how we magnetized the Knight, or how we just chaosified it, where all the bits came from, stay tuned, and we will show you in the following video. If you like what you see here, please feel free to leave a like or a comment or subscribe to the channel. And in any case, stay tuned. So in this video, we're going to build ourselves a Chaos Knight. We've got the Chaos Codex here. We're going to build one, hopefully, that's going to look similar to this. But we don't have a Chaos Knight kit. For the price that they existed, the Chaos Knight kit came with a lot of less options. And for the same price, you could get this Canis Rex kit. So this is the Imperial Knight's Knight Preceptor Canis Rex. And the reason we're using this kit is A, because it comes with a driver, and B, because it comes with all of the weapon options. So the Chaos Knight only came with a couple of options, whereas this is going to come with all of our weapon mounts. So as far as the Imperial Knights go, this one kit can build us pretty much any knight we want. Preceptors, Crusaders, Wardens, Paladins, Errants, and then Gallants. So we've got the Blades, the Claws, the Melta, the Battle Cannon, Thermal Cannon, Gatling Cannon, and the Rocket Pods, and the Icarus Missile Launcher, as well as the driver, who we can sit inside with an opening or closing door if we can wire that together too. The only other problem with this kit is it is an Imperial Knight, and we want it to be a Chaos Knight. And those two things look considerably different. So what we're going to do is, we won't be able to get the back-mounted legs, but in return we do have all our weapon mounts. So we're going to find a way to chaos this up quite nicely. And to do that, we're going to bring in a bunch extra kits. So let's take a look in the box and see what we got. So unlike the Chaos Knight kit, this kit actually comes with 4 sprues right here. So you've got your weapon sprue, you've got your legs and torso, lower torso sprue, you've got your upper carapace sprue with all your vents and exhaust ports, and then you've got the second weapon sprue with the helmets as well as the rocket pods and the Thunderfire gauntlets here and the auto cannons. And then this kit comes with a 5th sprue with the pilot seat, a couple of las cannons, the big thermal cannon, and then the mobile unit as well, who can walk around. And it gives us a few other Crusader helmets that weren't on the original kit here. So this came with these. This gives us one extra option, and between them we'll figure out which one we want to make all chaosy to work with our Chaos Knight. To aid us in our adventure, we also have a brand new on the sprue Chaos War Shrine. Which is this lovely thing. It's got two Ogren type creatures. It's got a big flat deck, and then it's got these flaming idols, which you can change depending on which god we're using, and it's got an extra character on it. We're going to chop most of this up using a lot of these pieces as decoration for the knight to chaos it up, and then we'll use the extra pieces for a bunch of different ideas we have for kit bashing. We will get to use almost everything here. And then on top of the Chaos Shrine, I think we're going to use a few other parts we have floating around. These are Malar Fiend arms. We do have a Forged Fiend, and when you build a Forged Fiend, the arms are left over. So they've got some nice armor pieces here we're going to try to mold onto our knight. And the arms we'll use later for another idea I have. A bunch of Age of Sigmar shields. And we'll use some of these as decorations on our knight as well and make them all chaosy. So there's no shortage of iconography here that we can use to chaos up our knight a little bit more. And then we also have a few standards. The pennant that hangs here, I think we will replace with possibly the one that comes off the blood letters. That's pretty tattered and torn, so we'll put that in there when we get to that point. But for the most part now, what we're going to do is start building our actual knight. So far we followed the instructions as per the letter. We've built both legs, and we haven't mounted them to the platform yet because we're going to do a whole lot of editing as we go. But we got both legs done. We've also done the hip as well. And then this piece this hexagon piece here will clip right into place there. This piece will glue right into place there, and we'll have our knight on his stance. Now, the one thing we're going to do first, because we want to make this easy for transport and easy for storage, we're going to magnetize the waist. So this piece is basically the rest of the pelvis and the hips, and then what ends up happening is the top half of the knight slot drops right on top of that. We're going to magnetize this section right here, and we're going to throw on a couple of big magnets, something like these. So we're going to shear that down and glue a magnet in place, and then probably add a second one, and then we'll put one on the underside of the Carapace, so that when we put it on, he'll be able to spin, as well as when we're transporting him, we'll be able to take him apart. So he won't need a box that big, because he'll be able to fit in two pieces. So that's sort of our plan now. So we'll do a lot of that editing, shaving down, probably fill it with some epoxy just to hold it in place, and glue everything together, and we'll meet back here when that's done. So we'll do that now. So what we did here was we filled the internal space here with putty, jammed a magnet inside, and allowed it to dry. And then our next step is to add some glue, and then glue a larger magnet over the top, and that'll create our hip joint, which will hold the torso up because that's very, very strong. And then we'll put a second one on the other side of the torso to drop on top of that, and then we'll have our ability to have a swivel hip right there. So we'll put some glue in there now and allow it to dry, and we'll move on from there. So while we're waiting for the new hips to dry, what we're going to do is move on to some of the armor plates for the legs. So these here have the spots inside that allow them to secure themselves right onto the leg like so. So what we're going to do there is we're going to add some chaos signatures to that. So we've got these two particular shields here. One with the Chaos Ram's head and one with a demon head. We're going to glue those. We've shaved off some of the Imperial designs there, and we're going to glue the Chaos ones right on the front of the armor like that, centering them nicely. We cleared off the inside of them so that they're nice and rounded, and they'll glue right in the space there like so and form very nice chaosy armor plates, which we can then paint up after. So we'll do that now, set those up, and then mount them, and then we'll work on the rest of the armor in a few moments. So because some of these horns overlap the knee plate, what we will do, I think, instead is we will assemble the rest of the armor first and then mount the horns on after, so that way we're not trying to slide armor pieces in behind the skull pieces. So we'll finish up with the armor first and then mount the two chaos symbols on the plates here. So when it comes for the upper thighs up here, what we're going to do is take the armor off of these two Malar Fiend hands. So this one's not actually attached, so it's free to work. This one, we're going to cut that hand off, and then that leaves us with the other plate. And then we're going to mount these plates with a little bit of adjustments, like so, giving us some chaos armor as opposed to the Imperial one that's there originally. So we'll fix some of that up now and do a whole lot of adjusting in order to get pieces that fit okay over that while the legs are in place. So we'll do some of that finagling now, and we'll be right back. So we finished with the knee pads. We've put those in place. We haven't put the chaos symbol yet because we're going to deal with the top upper thigh. So with that, we've got the Malar Fiend forearm plates. So what we've done is we've cut them down. We've cut a groove into one of the sides, which basically matches the groove of the hip, and that will allow this piece here to lock right into place like so. And it'll set nice and symmetrical like that, so we'll glue that one in place. We did the same thing with the other Malar Fiend forearm, cutting out a piece like so, so it just sits just like that and just matches up with that curve there, and then lines up in the front so it looks nice and straight. And then what we'll do is we will glue on the demon type horns with a little bit of adjustments there for the shins. So we'll do the rest of the legs, and we'll meet back here in a few minutes once that's all finished. So one last minute adjustment we had to make once we glued the thigh armor in place. We also need to cut it back because we needed access to this groove here, because there is a hydraulic unit that connects this to this piece here, which the armor was blocking, so we had to remove that. We did the same thing on the other forearm, just cutting that armor piece back so we could access that groove. So we'll allow these to dry. We'll finish putting them in place, and then we'll put the extra hydraulics in place, and we'll be almost finished the leg part. So our lower torso is almost finished now. Our legs are done. We couldn't fit the Chaos Shield the way it was with the vertical horns, so we ended up cutting them, turning them sideways and re-gluing it like that, so that fits now where the knee joint is. We added the hydraulics as well as the cabling there, and so now we've got most of that finished. So our next step is to add the standard that goes below. So what we did was we took the Imperial standard, we clipped the chains off, grabbed the Corn blood letters staff standard that we have here, glued the chains to the top, and that will eventually glue right in the two holes like so. We had to trim it a bit at the bottom because it hung a little bit too low to reach, so we fixed that. And then what we're going to do now is the codpiece plate here. This last little tongue is a little bit too low, so we're going to clip that off. And then we'll be able to see the standard that we've got hanging down below. So we'll finish that up there, and then we'll consider moving over to the upper torso next. So we've continued to build the Knight according to the directions on the paper, not changing anything. We've included the exhaust vents on the side. We did gouge the inside of the ring, fill it with putty, which you can see there, and jam a magnet inside, which is nice and in place, making sure the polarity is fine, which allows us to connect and disconnect our model as needed, like so. The glue is all dry on here. The standard is also dry now. We're not going to glue it on yet until we can glue it to the base as well. The next step we're going to make now, according to the directions, is we're going to start adding the passenger seat, the driver's seat for here, to put the driver inside, and then we'll probably have to magnetize this hatch so we can remove it and see the driver inside. So we'll probably do that now as well. And then we'll probably start building the carapace as well. But we'll do that first because the driver's seat glues on the underside here. The other thing we're going to do is add a magnet to the underside of the carapace here so we can change which weapon is on the top between the rocket launchers and the Icarus launcher. So we'll probably get some of that done, and we'll meet back here in a few more minutes. So here's what we managed to accomplish so far. We've magnetized the top carapace, and then we've built, according to the directions, the rocket launcher as well as the Icarus cannons. Both of which are magnetized, and either of them can clap right onto the top. So we'll put those aside. We also put the carapace in place. We're going to take it off for now. With the double magnets, they stick very nicely. And we can pivot that like so. We glued on the bloodletter banner with the chains. And so that's now firmly in place. We did have to crop the bottom, as we mentioned, so it does now fit on the platform, like so. And then that brings us to the carapace here. So we glued the top on, obviously. We took the big face from the Chaos War Shrine. We trimmed the fencing material that was on the top of it, that there. Had been originally attached there. We've trimmed that off. We're going to use that later on maybe the arms or some of the decoration somewhere. We may even put it on some of the railings. We'll deal with that after. The Canis Rex had the las cannon mount, so we put it together just for the sake of having it. We'll never know what we'll use it for. We didn't do the other side yet, but the face is there. And then we also magnetized the top door. So the pilot is inside. As you can see there, we added two little magnets here and then epoxied we added some of the plaster to add spaces for the magnets. Magnetized the underside of the door. And then these two now clip right in place like that, for the most part lining up. So with that done, you can see the magnet just inside the top bead. The magnet had to be offset a bit because of the driver's seat. It actually went up to about the midline here, so the magnet's actually a little off center. So we've done most of that now. What we're going to do here is probably start working on the two arms, shoulders, and then start magnetizing all of the weapons so we have as many options as we can get. So for our under carapace weapon, we've already built the las cannon. We have two options to swap that with. We do have the heavy stubber and the melta. So both of them have with their own cover piece. The problem is that only one of them can take the mounting. So the mounting clips on here first. And then once it's clipped in, then you put on the front and you've got a mounting like so. So what we're going to do is build a mounting for the second one. It won't be movable, but I think we're going to take the Carapace sprue, and we're going to take this piece right here, which we're not using for anything anyway. We're going to clip that, magnetize the top, and glue that just inside the lip here. And then what we'll do with that is that'll be our mounting for the second weapon. Our under Carapace weapons are now put together and they're glued. Both magnets are marked so that they were the right side up. And we can put them on the Carapace without too much trouble. Both sides are magnetized, so they'll take it. Either weapon. Like so. And then we also magnetized the shield holder, but we didn't put the shield on yet. And that can also clip in place there. So when it's going to come to the weapon mounts, we're going to have a couple of problems with, we have all the options. So we've got the gauntlet here, and then we've got the other cannon, we've got the chainsword over here, and then we've got the thermal cannon right over here. Now the problem are these things. These things are your limiting factors with knights. You only get, in this case we actually have 2 of them, but you usually only get 1 of them. And what happens is when you use them, and you hard mount it to, say, the Gatling cannon, well, then you don't have one left to mount the, long range cannon or the thermal cannon or things like that. And you end up with pieces like this without the back part. So we're either going to try to duplicate those bits or magnetize them so we could change the fronts. This is one we had left over from a different knight. So we can swap as many weapons as we can get. So dealing with the shoulder mounted weapons, the actual arm weapons, the shoulder is actually composed of this piece with this second piece here. And then what ends up happening is your weapon mounts onto this little piece here and you only get to build 1. So that's not practical in any way, shape, or form for all the options we've got. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our cutter, we're going to shear this piece off, we're going to drill a hole in the bottom, and we're going to insert a magnet. And then with that magnet, we will mount magnets on our weapons, so they'll attach and we'll have options. This is one from a previous knight, but we'll do it with these knights here so we can put as many options together as we can on our shoulders. So after a bit more assembly, we've got some more of the weapon mounts done. So we drilled out the shoulder joint and inserted a magnet. So with the magnet that we've inserted in there, we've been able to magnetize most of the weapon mounts. So we've built them according to the directions as they say, but when it got to the top, instead of the swivel, we just sheared that off, drilled out a hole and put a magnet inside. These two match polarities, and so we can mount these weapon mounts here. So we've built the chain blade, and we've built the gauntlet. We sheared off and then filed down the Imperial logo, and we added a Chaos one there. We also, speaking of which, added a Chaos logo to the front of the Carapace here. So we started our Chaos conversion. But as it stands now, both the gauntlet and the chainsword all match now, so we can mount him this way. We also built the Rotary Cannon, same exact thing. We built it as is in the instruction manual, and then we drill it and put the same magnet in the top. I sheared off the Adeptus Mechanicus logo and put one of the Chaos demon heads from the Rhino pack that you usually put on las cannons. So we put that there. And there was an Imperial cover that goes over the top of that. So we just swapped that from one of those other shields we were using earlier. So it looks just as good, except it's a Chaos logo that made it a little better. So we've got those that we can swap right on to that mount as well. So our next problem is this rig right here. So this last piece that we have, which is the only remaining arm we didn't do yet. So it's still drilled out its normal hole. We're going to put some putty in there and then drop the magnet inside. But this piece is, unfortunately, the piece used for the auto gun. It's the piece used for the thermal gun or the big melta, and it's also the piece used for the volcanic lance, lance, whatever the big fancy gun that comes on this particular knight. So this same piece is used for all three guns. So the problem is we need to figure out how to reuse it 3 times. So we could duplicate it, but I thought that it would be easier if we just magnetized it. So because this spout lies flush over that, like so, we don't need that ring, so we can shear that off completely. That ring is used for this mounting, so we'll just cut it off there and attach it to this. We've already put a magnet in place, so I'll probably put a second one just to add strength, and then we'll magnetize the inside of here, and then that should create a attachment point for this weapon as well as the 2 weapons with that. We may probably still have to duplicate this piece because we don't have 2 of them to use for both the Lassie launcher of some sort here, and the other weapon is the thermal cannon, which we're probably going to use the most because it is the cheapest option. So this weapon and that weapon have to use this piece. So long story short is we're going to have to do some cutting and some magnetization on it. To add stability, I put a second magnet on the side here. So what will happen is this weapon will magnetize in, and it'll have an extra piece attached, which is right here. So what we'll do is we'll just straight up connect that piece to the front part, and it'll come off with the weapon, and it'll hold it on place and add some stability by putting the magnet in this piece. And this weapon front will have 2 magnet attachments, the main one and then the side one, and that'll keep it from rolling around. So we're going to do that now. So after a little bit of arranging, we've managed to construct these 3 weapons now for the rest of the knight's options. So what we've got here is that piece like we were just talking about, and what we did was we dropped the magnet in the front, side mounted on the back for stability, and then we took the 2 main weapons and we put the little extra. There's a little spot on the side here that usually holds a thing, an extra little bit to go with each gun. So this is the one actually from the big giant gun here, and I left that one on because it was sort of innocuous. It doesn't match anything else. It just looks like a thickened area. So I left that on there, and then this little extra piece goes with the little stubber on the side. So we magnetized that, used that piece for stability, dropped it in place. With the thermal cannon or the melt, it's got a big fuel tank. So that's usually what goes here. I took it off, I glued it on the side, dropped the magnet in place, and then that provided some stability so it doesn't rock and roll. So now we've got pretty much our thermal cannon, which can easily swap over to our battle cannon with stubber. And then that just leaves the, and I looked up the name this time because I messed it up so bad last section here, was the Impulsor. So that's here. So that used the same piece this had, so we did duplicate that, and I'll put a link in the bottom on how to duplicate bits. So that's there. That's what we got for the duplicated bit. This wire piece is going to drop right in place, so we'll glue that in place like so, and then we'll magnetize that. It comes with a battery pack because it is a las cannon of some sort. So what we'll do is we'll just glue that there, and then we'll keep this little wire divot. Maybe we'll find a spot to stick it. We do have the extra little piece here. So I'll see if I can make it look pretty. But in any case, we'll drop that in place there, add the little magnet in the side, and then that will be our last option. And we don't get an option to use this except in one particular knight. But we will put it on anyway just to be safe. And then that way we'll have it if we need it. So at this point, all of our weapon options are complete. So we've got this base piece here. We've got the last Imperator, which clips right on place. We've got the thermal cannon, clips right on place. And we've got the battle cannon, which also clips right on place. This is all magnetized. It pops right onto the chassis, like so, and we can swap weapons on the fly as we need to. Our next step is going to be to chaosify this Knight. So we started a couple of places. We put this piece on here on the chainsword. It's off the Rhino kit. There's a bunch of cube squares that you can put on the Predator, the Chaos Predator. So it's there. As well, we put one on the Thunderfire Gauntlet that we had seen earlier. And then we put one so far on the front piece here. So there's a few other things that we're going to do. We still have the shield to put on and mount on the side here. So that shield there, we'd like to have it a little bit chaosified. So we'd like some chains and skulls and things like that on it. We have several kits to work with. So our first kit is the War Shrine that we were talking about earlier. And that has a bunch of great pieces on it. So move that off so you have a relatively clear background. So we have this this big artifact here, which sort of looks like it would fit on a Kit Bash Mutalith beast. We have these Ogren type multi-arm things, which we may use as Chaos Spawn. But we have these chains here, and these chains would fit very nicely running across that shield. So we have a couple of them there, as well as one that's dropping a skull. So we may use those to chaosify that. We have this helmet for the priest that goes on board. And these two horns may look nice on the helmet that we're going to put on the Knight. Now, I didn't like all the holes, and I definitely didn't like the cross, so I filled them in with the putty, and so hopefully that'll sand somewhat smooth. What we could do is we could take those two horns and mount them as two overhorns. We do have the Demon Prince head, and he's got two horns we could cut off and put there and there as well. And that would be definitely a little chaosy. So our other options we have are the upgrade screws for the Chaos Predator. So these have all of these fence post railings. And as we know, these things look great up on the shoulders of the Knight. They give it a really chaosy look. We've got several chains we can dangle between the extensions and the arms. And then we've also got several more logos of Chaos, as well as some of Nurgle and Khorne. These are different shaped than the other ones. We may be able to fit them in place. We've got the las cannon fronts, or the bolter fronts, which we could use as decoration. We've got these nasty hooks. So we have several pieces here that we can use as well as chaosification type things. One of the other interesting things that I grabbed for this that we're going to enjoy is one of these orc weird boy type standard staffs, something along those lines. Could be from the Sigmar ones as well. Either way, this bottom, or this top design makes a really great bottom jaw. So on our Knight, where we've got the War Shrine head, that is going to do very nicely on the bottom to create a very scary looking face and complete that look there. Which is why we didn't put anything on this plate, because this is going to fit there. And then from afar, you're definitely going to see that gold painted face. That's going to be very recognizable for Chaos, especially if you've got Chaos Marines and Demons. Should have a bag of standards by now, which is where we got our Khorne rag banner from the bottom. But several of them will have things like this. So there's a skeleton hanging from the top here, and if we do cut out the Nurgle inner, We can maybe use that as a skeleton that's just hanging there. There are a few other ones. This corn one's got a skull hanging down. This one's just a straight up banner with chaos and a skull. So all these things we could put up above as we seen fit, as well as a lot of these spikes with helmets and skulls on it. So we'll probably use a lot of these to chaosify up our knight, and we'll meet back here in a few minutes. So this is our finished model now that we finished chaosing bitting it up. So what we did was quite a few different things. We used a lot of the spikes off of the Rhino kit. They came out of grill. We just cut off the spikes loose and I glued them along the edges. So I did one set there, one set here, as well as a couple of loose ones in the back. I picked anything that had interesting heads. So a Necron head here, skull there, Space Marine there. On this side we got a Tau Warrior and the skull here, another Space Marine. So all the things that show corpses and things like that. We took the chains that came with the Rhino, or the Predator, and then what happened is there was a long loop chain which I put in. Then I glued on a couple of these smaller skulls I cut free and just left them dangle. I did something else earlier and ended up having to sand it off because it didn't look good. So there was some trial and error here. Took a few spikes that we had kicking around from some demons. The 8-pointed Star of Chaos we already had. We used the Chaos War Shrine, as we said, for the chains, and then I left one of them dangling with a skull, so that's pretty much what we predicted we would do. I put the helmet, and I used the Demon Prince horns on it, so I thought that looked pretty nice. And then we got the base of that staff to make the demon face here, so I think that looks pretty impressive as well. We glued on a bunch of spikes on all of the weaponry, so as you can see right here, nothing too exciting. Just letting them glue, just letting them dry. So that's all good. On the back end, we put a couple more chains around, just any place we could find something. So we put one mounted here on the engine, and then the extra skull bits here. And then on the top, on the launcher, we just added a Chaos logo there. I considered it a standard post, but I thought that was too big and took away from the model. Whereas this was just subtle enough that it was decent, and if it's not on, the model still has a very chaosy look. With it on, it doesn't take anything away from the model as well. So that is our chaos model. So we'll prime it up and we'll start painting it, and we'll see what the finished product looks like. But for today, that's about all we're going to do for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. It was sort of all over the place because it was part instruction to magnetization, part instruction to how to add chaos bits. It was sort of a mess, but hopefully you found it amusing, and if so, leave a like or a comment. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see how this guy turns out painted. Turn on alerts, and otherwise than that, we will see you at our next video, which hopefully will be the painting one for this guy.